Hello, my name is Jaron Daniel Schone. I'm a high school teacher at the Berlage Lyceum in Amsterdam, and I'm a PhD research student at the University of Amsterdam. And thank you, first of all, for watching this visual presentation. I'm going to be talking about my research into moral subjectivism, specifically about moral education, the fact-opinion dichotomy, and its relationship to moral subjectivism. In my paper, I make three claims. First of all, is that many students are moral subjectivists, and I'll explain what moral subjectivism means in just a moment. I also claim that moral subjectivism is a problematic meta-ethical theory. And thirdly, I think that the fact and opinion dichotomy can actually be used to discuss moral subjectivism. Now, let's first discuss what moral subjectivism is. In my opinion, it's the opposite of moral objectivism. And moral objectivism is the idea that the truth of moral statements is mind independent. That is to say that just like there's a truth about the shape of planet Earth, which is mind independent, it doesn't depend on what people think, whether the Earth is shaped as a globe or has another shape. So too, moral statements are mind independent, according to moral objectivists. They usually are facts concerning human flourishing, biology, or maybe even Platonic ideas or the existence of a deity, which can be seen as the foundation of moral objectivism. Moral subjectivism, on the other hand, is the idea that moral statements are mind dependent, so they are in some way made true or false by what people believe or think. Now, I got interested in this topic because of an article written by Professor Justin McBrayer in the New York Times titled "Why Our Children Don't Think There Are Moral Facts." In this article, McBrayer argues that we teach children in high school that there are no such thing as moral facts, or in other words, to believe that moral subjectivism is true. Now, why would Justin McBrayer say this? Well, he had a conversation with his son about a very specific assignment that his son received at school. This assignment is called the Fact or Opinion Worksheet. The Fact or Opinion Worksheet is not only an American thing, McBrayer is an American professor, but you encounter it in many different countries. In the Netherlands, I've encountered it at least in 4 different classes, the language classes, social studies classes, and in history classes, and even in philosophy classes. The Fact or Opinion Worksheet always has the same form. It starts out with a section with a definition of a fact and an opinion. Here you see that a fact is described as a thing which actually exists, or which is true or false, and is provable, observable, and measurable. An opinion is usually described as a personal belief or judgment. It's not something that's either true or false. Notice, by the way, that this particular fact or opinion worksheet also gives you signal words. Now, the second part of the fact or opinion worksheet consists of a list of statements, and the idea is that the student categorizes these statements as either facts or opinions. So, for instance, the top left statement is mystery novels are the most exciting books to read, and this statement should be categorized as an opinion. The top right statement is jellyfish don't have brains, bones, or a heart, and this statement is supposed to represent a fact. Here is the question that McBrayer asked. What would happen if you were to add moral statements to this list? How would students categorize these statements? And according to McBrayer, they would categorize these statements as opinions rather than facts. Actually, one of the signal words that we just saw were good and bad, and these were in the category of opinions. So, according to McBrayer, students are being taught that moral statements ought to be opinions. Now, I wasn't too sure about that. I thought that in extreme cases, such as a statement as genocide is wrong, students would still categorize these statements as facts rather than opinions. But McBrayer didn't provide any empirical evidence, he just had this conversation with his son about the worksheet. So I decided to make my own fact or opinion worksheet, and this fact or opinion worksheet that I created consists of two open questions, namely what is a fact and what is an opinion. It was interesting to see that in the results, the students actually define fact and opinion in exactly the same way as they are being taught in this fact or opinion worksheet. Then the the questionnaire had 25 different statements, of which 6 were moral statements. I had different classes in 6 different schools respond to this questionnaire, and let me show you the results. In my opinion, the results are pretty clear. I was wrong. Most students, and we're talking about a lot of students here, usually 80 or 90% or more of the students, categorize moral statements as opinions rather than facts. And so McBrayer was right, and it seems to me that this is a problem. Now, you might think that, well, this is just what they fill out, but they don't actually believe this. But I had interviews with students after they filled out this questionnaire, and I asked them, when you say that genocide is bad is an opinion, do you actually mean by that genocide is bad is a personal belief, and that other people are entitled to other beliefs, such as the belief that genocide is right? And students would reply, yes, that's what we believe. We think that genocide is bad, that's what we believe, but there is no fact of the matter. An opinion doesn't concern something which is true or false. So because there's no fact of the matter, you can't argue that genocide is bad is true, and therefore other people are entitled to their own beliefs. And there are actually people who believe that genocide is right, and it's just fine if they believe that. This is what they say. And again, I think this is problematic. Now, why do I think this is problematic? Let me just slide over this one. I have my own personal website where I try to make another questionnaire which more reliably checks whether someone is a moral objectivist or moral subjectivist. So if you're interested, you can go to this website and see my work. But here are the reasons why I think that moral subjectivism is a problematic meta-ethical theory. First, moral discussion would just be useless. It would be irrational. It would be like discussing taste, because moral subjectivism, in this sense, what we're talking about now, is a personal belief or judgment. So, for instance, it's my personal belief that vanilla ice cream is tastier than chocolate ice cream. But I can't have a rational discussion about someone. I can't argue that vanilla ice cream is actually tastier. It's just my personal belief. And another person can believe that chocolate ice cream is tastier. And as soon as we say that moral statements are opinions and thus similar to statements about taste, that would mean that moral discussions would become irrational. It would entail that tolerance is a meaningless notion because there's nothing to be tolerant about. The opinion of another is just as good and powerful as your own opinion. It would entail that moral progress would become impossible because moral progress needs some kind of moral standard which you progress towards. And if there's no objective moral standard, if morality is purely subjective, then there can't be any progress. Therefore, there can't be any moral progress. And finally, and perhaps most interestingly, moral subjectivism has detrimental consequences for moral behavior. There are psychological studies that show that if you prime someone with moral subjectivism, these people are more likely to steal, to cheat, and they give less money to charities, um, in relationship to when you prime someone with moral objectivism. Moral objectivists are less likely to steal, cheats, and are more likely to give to charities. So, what can be done about this problem of moral subjectivism, which I think is one of the um, biggest problems that we face at the moment? If so many students truly are moral subjectivists, then it seems to me that this is something that we should discuss with students, especially if we feel that it's important that students become good citizens. Now, it's interesting that you can actually use the fact or opinion worksheet as a tool to teach them about moral subjectivism and moral objectivism. You can find the fact or opinion worksheet, the modified one with moral statements that I used, on the previously shown website moraleducation.eu. Let the students fill out the form, show them their results, and their results will be that many of the moral statements or all of the moral statements are opinions according to them, and ask them the following questions. What would society be like if everyone could decide what is right and wrong based on personal preference? The students will likely recognize that if everyone is entitled to their own personal beliefs on morality, that would result in chaos in a society. The second question: are moral norms that are encoded in the law based on personal preferences or on something else? Students are very likely to say that genocide is wrong or that murder is wrong because that's encoded in the law. If you ask them the question why it is encoded in the law, they will likely see that it's not due to some personal preference of a number of people, but because there's actually some kind of fact of the matter which was encoded in the law, and that's the reason why the law is so important to uphold. And finally, would there be any point in discussing moral issues if morality is based on personal preferences? Here you can discuss the earlier mentioned problem with discussions about taste, vanilla ice cream versus chocolate ice cream. It's irrational to have that kind of discussion, and if morality is a form of taste, if it's that subjective, that would mean that discussing moral issues, whether it's ISIS or slavery, would become useless. So, let me sum up. According to my research, and I'm still working on a better way to determine this, but it seems to me that many students are in fact de facto moral subjectivists. I have tried to show that moral subjectivism, especially the type of moral subjectivism that students exhibit, the kind of personal moral subjectivism, is a problematic meta-ethical theory. And I've tried to show that one of the tools that are being used in high schools anyway, namely the fact or opinion worksheet, which is actually one of the causes of moral subjectivism, can be used to discuss the moral subjectivism, moral objectivism dichotomy if you ask the right questions and if you add moral statements to this questionnaire. Alright, so that's my visual presentation. If you have any questions to me, you can find my email address in the paper. And thank you for listening.